We are live. We're up. We're running. What's going on, everybody? Welcome to Fantasy NBA Today Live. This is just we're chilling hour, few minutes. I'm Dan Besbris. He's Aaron Bruski. Good morning, Aaron.
Good morning to you, sir. How are you?
I don't know. I'm like this week has worn me out in a weird way. I thought this was going to be a nice bounce back week after trade deadline stuff, but I'm gassed. My wife has been off work this week, so like we're constantly doing things which normally I'd want when I have time off work, I want to just sit and stare blankly at a wall. When she has time off work, we gotta like lunch with someone, dinner with someone, take the kid to the park. Like, oh my god, this is the worst week off ever. Uh, and then obviously
I
terrible
so relate to that.
between that and the fact that the world is a disaster right now, I'm gassed, man. I need fire. I need you to light the fire for me. I was talking about yesterday's pod. Light the fire.
Oh, crap. Well, hey, we're going to release a new website this week. How do you like that, Dan?
Whoa. Wait, I'm not allowed to. Holy. What if I say it with the microphone covered? Can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you.
Yeah, you can probably still hear me. Holy crap. This week?
You know what? We have a mantra here, which is do things right. And, you might not notice that from certain things that we do, but
I don't know what you're talking about.
We take the time to try to, there's been a couple times where it have been tempting to try to push something through, but no, we got, pros. I can't say enough about Thomas Serio and Ryan Peffers and Amar Preet and just the group that we have working this new website up. I mean, you've seen some of the schematics, and
I have.
It's the website we deserve, and it's really not. It's actually just a holdover website. It's
is it the website we need or the website we deserve? That felt very Dark Knight of you.
Maybe it's because RotoPat tweeted something about Robert Mueller. Like, he seems like the right man at the right time. It's the right website at the right time.
Get your ball hooped.
To get your ball hooped. No, it's we got another website that will have most of the bells and whistles that we really get excited about. For fantasy users, having everything in one place is it's a big deal. But
I love me some forum action. As long as I got me a sweet forum, I'm good to go.
Well, it's the simple things. Now, and actually, we have a lot of changes for the forums that are coming in too that won't come out with this website release, but that would come in right after it. So that's exciting. There's a game tonight with the Rising Stars Challenge. We have a DraftKings promo. This to me is like, I'm actually going to probably play this one. I'm going to take the Sacramento Kings guys because I think they've played together and they are going to get some playing time, and their games they work well in this environment. But no, it's tough. I mean, this school shooting, I don't know if it's the video or just like the pure, like,
it's the kids, man.
It's the stupidity. It's the kids. There's no, like, you have to be a complete total moron to think that kind of gun should be sellable to anybody. And that's the problem. It's a lifestyle that is being sold by it's like Coke and Pepsi. Like, it's like Coke is acid sugar water that if you drop a penny into, bad things happen to the penny. And it gets sold by, bright-eyed models, the Kardashians, and selling a lifestyle that has nothing to do with the drink. And it's this, it's the first probably at least semi-modern, example of selling a product that has nothing to do with the way of life that you live and using a lifestyle to sell a product. It's the same thing with guns. Like, we're never gonna as a society need guns to rise up against our government. Like that is just like a complete myth that, you know, there are greater forces at play that we would have better leverage to use simply by not working or whatever it might be, than needing all of these guns. And you look around the world and there's all these examples of countries that don't have this happen. And, you know, there's nothing you can do to stop a good person from buying a gun and then having circumstances in their life turn them into a bad person. And then, you know, what then about screening for bad people getting guns can you do about a good person buying a gun turning into a bad person somehow? And then they've already got that gun. There's nothing about this that's complicated in the slightest, but these people's lives are changed, and we as a country have to own it and wear it, and it affects everybody from top. We're all connected, and it's very distressing, and it's hard to talk about basketball, but we'll pivot and we'll talk about basketball. But I really caution people that tell people like LeBron James to just talk about basketball.
Don't even give that dummy any airtime. That is trolling.
But this is what half of our country believes, and I think it's just fair to ask that half of the country to just really think about the basics of this, and if it was their kids or somebody that they knew, you know, how they would feel about this stuff. And it's completely, you just have to look at the rest of the world. But it's a lifestyle that the NRA is changing, that they're selling. If they're selling that if you are against them, that you're some sort of liberal hippie with no common sense, and we got to have these guns, and screw you, you're not an American, and what about the soldier? I mean, it's really like tied into all these other concepts, and it makes me sick to my stomach that, you know, it's the same strategy being used to sell Pepsi and Coke that's being used and effectively, and a good half of the country doesn't see this as a problem, and it's just going to keep happening and happening and happening and happening and happening, and whenever it stops, it won't be soon enough. But the only way that it's going to change is education and voting. So I'll get off my rant, but it's just really hard to talk about that. So I understand your pain.
Yeah, really hard. I've cried 3 times this week, and I don't know a single person involved in that thing. I don't know anybody from Parkland, Florida, and I just watch the TV and I see these kids talking about their lives. I'm gonna cry on air right now. It's disgusting.
These kids, the kids are the adults, and this is something that I kind of remember from being a kid. Is like sometimes the kids are smarter than the adults.
Always, they always are.
And this is just, you know, the right's got to get a hold of the NRA and teach who is boss, because this stuff's got to end. But we'll talk some hoops, and we'll you know, we'll keep pushing forward. It's a tough situation, but I think it's a real situation, and it's about time we in this country dealt with stuff that's real. You know, real is there's a lot of people that are going. It's not even limited to the gun stuff. It's limited to the racism. You know, the rampant racism that's out there. You know, if you're a person of color, you know, you're just going through it on a day-to-day basis, and we will deal with it, or at least I will. I will always encourage people to deal with reality here at Hoopball, and you know, we will talk basketball, but at the same time, you know, some reality is not the worst thing in the world.
Why he's the architect, folks. Gives us a platform here and doesn't stop us from saying things that are reasonable. The whole thing, yeah, it's overwhelming. And I my only thought, I guess, to pare it down to a very short version is the incident itself obviously was devastating, but I've been more bothered by the people that claim that there's nothing that can be done, because there's always something. And even if it's something that, I mean, I don't know what the number is off the top of my head, but there's been, what, 18 school shootings in the first, like, 45 days of this calendar year. If that number goes from 18 down to 14, isn't it worth it? Isn't it?
Oh,
if that number goes from 18 down to 17, isn't it worth it? So let's do something. Don't say there's nothing that can be done. Don't give me the, like, well, if you take away the gun, they'll use the truck thing. That's bunk, because how many times has that been done in the first 50 days of this year? Once? Guns 18 in schools, trucks 0 times in schools, once on a street. Not the same.
You're going to get 18 kids with a truck on the 3rd floor or whatever floor it was of that school.
Yeah, it's apples. It's apples and oranges. It's a false equivalency that people use to try to defend doing nothing, and it's bunk. So let's do a show and talk basketball. Welcome to Fantasy NBA Today live, everybody. We are live on YouTube. It's Friday. We do this every Friday. This one, of course, a little bit different. It's been a weird week. I am Dan Besbris at Dan Besbris on Twitter. He is Aaron Bruski, El Arquitecto. He is at Aaron Bruski on Twitter, and we are, of course, part of the Hoop Ball umbrella, the Hoop Ball umbrella. I think I can call it that, right? Hoop-ball.com at Hoop Ball Fantasy for all of your hooping and balling needs. Brew, on the basketball side, it's been actually kind of a good week. We've been able to isolate some data from the trade deadline finally, and I'm going to pick your brain on it. I want to spend a lot of time on questions this week because last week we had the big trade deadline show, and we didn't really get a chance to take questions because it was such a wild and woolly 4-hour trade deadline special. We ended up doing last Friday's show recorded because you and I were both just freaking done after Thursday. But this week we got a little energy left in the tank. And I'm sure people have a ton of questions about everything that happened. So I only have 9 things on my own list. That's like 60% of what I usually give to you. So hopefully we can spend like a good 30 to 40 minutes taking questions from the chat room. A lot have come in, a lot of thoughts actually on the week gone by. I'm going to do my best to try to piecemeal those together in a way that's fair and equitable. But first things first, Brew, you mentioned during our little pre-recorded show time that there are some changes coming to Hoop Ball this coming week. We got a new website ready to go, huh?
Yeah, all praise goes to Thomas Serio and Ryan Peffers. I am in just awe of what they do for us. And so they've been just plucking away at this new site. And the plan at this point is to release it during the break. We'll see. I've always said to these guys, if it's not ready, it's not ready. Don't push it. But that's the plan as of right now. So you guys will see a shiny new website with a lot more production quality, and that will be good for all involved. After that, we'll be adding some features to the forums. So that's big. And this is just actually a holdover website for what we call Hoopball 2.0. So this is Hoopball 1.2. Hoopball 2.0 will be bringing in a lot of stats and, sort of the kind of stuff you might see at ESPN, as we, affectionately call ourselves BSPN. That stuff's coming out this summer. And so, yeah, things are moving forward. That's always exciting. And then from a basketball perspective, I feel like there are a lot of storylines right now after, I don't know, maybe a tepid trade deadline, though it's hard to call it tepid when the Cavs trade half their roster. And one of the more interesting stories I think I've covered, especially with, some big name teams, when you trade Isaiah Thomas to the Lakers, in an attempt to clear cap space to get LeBron the following year. And, the whole LeBron aspect of it, and those details continue to trickle out. It's just that was a fascinating deadline, but also a lot of players, especially even like hoop ball, Sixers, like Taurean Prince, he sputtered into the break. James Johnson's kind of didn't sputter into the break, but we got some real insight, at least today, from an article that was written about him, and real questions like John Wall, did you make a big play for him, and a lot of really unique situations. So let's go ahead and let's get into your questions so we make sure that the chat room gets all their questions answered. But I think, and thinking about the Bruski 150 for the second half, I personally have a lot of questions that I can't wait to have this time off to really dive into, do a deep dive and get some good results out of.
Well, the first one I'm actually taking from the Hoop Ball forums, and that was post All-Star break potential buy low candidates. So I'm just leaving this one open, kind of a broad question, because I know it forces you to sort of dig into everybody in the league. But anybody that sort of, like you said, sputtered into the break, or maybe playing a little dinged up, that you think has a chance to really make a push here after the All-Star break, and while everybody's just sitting for a week, maybe someone can go grab them at a bargain price.
Certainly the 3 players that I just said are, I think maybe I'm drawn to that, aside from being invested in them, but also just, I'm always looking for value, and especially for our readers, I want to make sure that we're pumping out the recommendations that make a difference. And when I see those three guys, for one, on the Isaiah side, I haven't seen a player experience kind of a tidal wave or a tsunami wave of PR, negative PR like that in years. And since he's returned, he's had three, or since he's been traded to the Lakers, he had 3 games. The first one was obviously great. The second one was hilarious. Rondo, right out of the Rondo handbook, practically picks like a physical fight on the court. Isaiah doesn't buy any of it, and eventually gets tossed because the refs basically just pulled the parent move where it's like both y'all go to your corner, and there was no sort of no look at what Rondo was actually doing there. The TNT guys finally, for the basketball media at large, who basically just wrote it up as Isaiah Thomas lost his cool, which he didn't. The TNT guys showed last night exactly what Rondo was doing, elbowing him in the face and such. And so he gets thrown from a game, and then follows it up with last night's, I think it was like a 3 for 15 effort where he played really well, but just couldn't make those shots, and even took questionable shots as he's trying to find his rhythm. I think there's so much amplitude to that story. Like, that is a massive buy low, massive buy low. I think you could get Isaiah Thomas for top 75 pick right now, and he really does have top 20 potential. I think he mixes well with those Lakers. I think that they're kind of a good fit for him. I don't want to say a perfect fit, but I think that those players are willing to let him handle the ball. I mean, heck, when he's not handling right now, they're using Brandon Ingram to handle the ball, and that's its own little conversation because he looks kind of good doing it, but that's not ideal. So I think he's the right guy at the right time for those Lakers. I think that means he has top 20 potential. And again, with all of the negative press and all of the questions about his performance and his hip, which I think is a legitimate question. You could question whether or not the hip is going to end up being okay. But when I watch him play, I just see the same guy. I just don't think he has the length on his jump shot. I don't think his elevation is quite there. But as far as everything else goes, the quickness and the ability to get to the lane, all of the rhythm stuff, I think that the players around him are going to figure out how he plays. I think he played really well with
Zubac.
Zubac was a given, but Kuzma, I thought he played really well with Kuzma, and I thought he played really well with Julius Randle. And that's I think all those guys are going to really benefit from pick and roll action with him and figuring out, okay, he's going to either take the shot, he's going to drive, or he's going to pass, and figure out where to stand. And you heard Luke Walton in his interview with David Aldridge. Aldridge asked him a leading question about defense, and then Walton was like, no, I'm a basketball person. I understand things. I'm going to basically poo-poo your conversation about defense and say, no, actually the defense is fine, which Thomas was playing. Now that he's been cracked on for his defense so much, he's actually really kind of doing the best he can. He had some great possessions against Jimmy Butler, and he doesn't give up ground in the post. So he's picked it up as best he can in that area. But it's the offense that Walton pointed to, the rhythm that they need to get into. I think Walton's on board with this. And so, yeah, that's a buy low. The stuff on James Johnson, he actually had an article written about him today by Ira Winderman, and it talked about his physical situation. Johnson basically said that he's at the same weight he was at last year, same percentage body fat. So it was a highly specific discussion. And the implication here is that his ankle's not where it is, because the article was about his lack of physicality, that the fact that he's different this year, he's slower, he's not elevating as much. And then it also wove in a topic that I had discussed with you about 3 weeks ago, or whenever we learned that, probably not 3 weeks ago, when we learned that Dwayne Wade was coming to the Heat, was that Dwayne Wade coming to the Heat would actually help him out, because now he's not playing on the ball as much, and he can be a little bit more explosive off the ball. And that there's going to be a shift in mentality there. And so I kind of think this is a great pivot point for James Johnson. I think the rest and Dwayne Wade being there, it just kind of takes a little bit of the alpha responsibility off of him. And I think it's exactly like, it's kind of how we've recommended it. So I'm good on a buy low with James Johnson. And I don't even remember. Taurean Prince, this guy, ever since the finger injury, and even not with regard to the finger injury. He has sputtered into the break. He needs a break as much as anybody that I've seen. And I think that the market is more down on him than they should be. I mean, this guy's a top 80 guy, top 90 guy, that he's not going to be consistent. But you're talking about the last third of the season. Coaches will have the leash tight on him and a guy like Marquise Chris. You know, the same article was written out of Phoenix. Is struggling player. Is he where he needs to be physically? They're not coddling him. They're basically making him, quote, earn his minutes. But what happens at the end of the year is all of the, you know, we're gonna harp on you for this. We're gonna harp on you for that. We're gonna pull your minutes here. We're gonna pull your minutes there. All of that every year is in preparation for the time that they let that go. And so these players, they finally get let go. And Marquise Chris is playing 30 minutes per night. Taurean Prince is going to get 30 minutes per night. And all of that being a hard ass by the coaches, it actually it pays off. And then those guys get let loose. So I got buy lows on those two guys for sure.
You want to talk for like 20 seconds about Nikola Jokic setting a record last night? The fastest triple-double in NBA history. How's that? That's pretty cool. I mean, it doesn't even matter for fantasy purposes because obviously he's owned everywhere, but that's pretty neat for a big guy that, as Michael Malone said, couldn't jump over a piece of paper.
He is a stat machine. Like, that's
very cool.
He's a pitcher. You know, he's dealing. He's like Spencer Dinwiddie when he's out there. He's trying to get everybody involved, and it's great to watch. And it's not surprising to me at all that he broke that record.
Very cool. Congrats to Nikola Jokic. Congrats to the Denver Nuggets, who are starting to figure things out. And then, of course, they've got Paul Millsap coming back, and they'll have to refigure things out. But good problem to have. Milwaukee Bucks, that's a team I'm headed to. They brought in a guy named Tyler Zeller, and suddenly he's playing 30 minutes. John Henson has been out, so obviously a grain of salt on this. But does this take you back a little bit to a time when Milwaukee just decided they didn't want to play any one center enough minutes to make them fantasy relevant? I got that pit in my stomach that it's coming after the All-Star break, and Zeller and John Henson are each going to see 23 minutes, and someone else is going to play. Giannis is going to play 2 minutes at center or something crazy like that.
Or Jabari at center even.
Yeah, doesn't it feel like something ugly is about to happen out there?
I thought that, you know, Henson's time was basically very much at risk as far as a standard league guy. You can make 20, he's a 25-minute guy. You can make that fit, you know, as you add other players around it. So it wasn't like a death blow, but I think the consistency won't be there. And then when you factor in he's starting to get hurt again, I'm fine with people moving away from John Henson and, you know, taking a flyer on whatever player of the day. But yeah, it was a good run for John. I think that he kind of answered some questions about his staying power if he ever does get minutes in the near future here. If he's a 25-minute guy, there's no question that he's going to have fantasy value.
Yeah, I didn't think that one was going to be one of our harder questions. Tim Hardaway Jr. and the Knicks point guards. That's next on my list here. I'm reading it verbatim from how I wrote it in a notepad document. That's right. I go with .txt files, baby. I'm old school. We kept saying that Timmy was bound to regress in a good fashion at some point. You know, I didn't know if it was injury or fatigue or just a slump. I think he's always been prone to shooting slumps, but this was a particularly bad one. But he blew up for 37 in their last ball game. One day thing, sign of things to come. I mean, obviously he's a guy that needs to be owned and used. And then the point guards, you know, it was Moutier one night. Then it was Garrett Jack again. He resurfaced. We haven't seen a whole lot of Trey Burke in all of this. We've seen a little bit of Frank Ntilikina. Word is that they're going to be changing up their starting I said rotation. I guess pitchers and catchers reported this week, and my brain's all discombobulated. They're starting 5 after the All-Star break. So don't you kind of have to just hold and see what that starting lineup is after the break? Or, I don't know, you're frowning a little bit.
I'm frowning because I don't trust the Knicks at all. Like, you know, we're going to play the kids, but then all of a sudden there's one last game before the break where we don't. The addition of Emmanuel Moutier has really put a damper on anything having to do with Frank Ntilikina. And we haven't seen Ntilikina really show off the stat set, you know, in a pretty good while. And so like I mentioned in I think Monday's show that I accidentally didn't drop him in a couple spots, or that the way it worked out,
You
I
just
didn't
said,
drop Ntilikina. I intended to, um, but I'm not seeing I'm not seeing the stat set. I'm not seeing the trust out of the front office. And then you bring in Moutier. It just, to me, it's a lot of hurdles to clear, even though at the same time they're saying we're going to be making these big changes and we're going to be playing the kids. And that, sounds great. You try to play Ntilikina off the ball like everybody talks about. But then you run into these issues where does anybody really respect Moutier's jump shot? Does anybody, kind of really respect Frank Ntilikina's jump shot at this point? And then when you don't have shooting in the lineups, you have trouble, which means that you play Tim Hardaway at shooting guard. There's a question, I guess, can you play Tim Hardaway at small forward at all and really go small? And the answer is probably no. And you already got a guy playing small forward in Courtney Lee, who really probably should be playing shooting guard. So they get small real quick. It's just, again, every time I run into a different hurdle, whether I'm talking about Moutier's value, Ntilikina's value, or, kind of, down the line, I guess if you want to talk about Trey Burke, I don't think Trey Burke will get minutes. So I'm not optimistic on any of them. I did add Moutier in a few places, especially where I'm punting field goal percentage. Just not optimistic about that bunch. I think that there's too much dysfunction in those ranks to be able to count on those guys.
Well, let's stay in New York, but let's take the bridge to Brooklyn. Jarrett Allen, D'Angelo Russell, Alan Crabb, Damari Carroll. We've seen Allen get pulled back a little bit. We've seen D'Angelo Russell start to do a couple of things. Not a ton of mistakes lately. We've seen Alan Crabb get white hot. I mean, just like electric. So go former Cal Bears. And Damari Carroll has been averaging a double-double basically while they've been pulling back on Jarrett Allen. So there are some more kind of big man stats floating around out there. What do we think we're going to get from Brooklyn after the All-Star break?
I think it'll be more of the same. I think we'll probably see some slight improvement in the defensive stats for Jarrett Allen. I mean, he can't be this bad forever. As far as the D'Angelo Russell stuff goes, I think that it's clear to everybody involved that he's not as good as Spencer Dinwiddie. He's going to have to get his production in bursts. I think that they'll just pull him when he pulls his stuff. It's amazing to me watching those guys play, how bad Russell is in those situations, end game situations when you cannot have a bad shot and he's out there still doing it. He's pressing. So I think at the same time, he's a great not great, but a good fantasy asset. Like he just gets stats and, that'll help him be worth at least top 100 value, if not top 75 value. Don't think he'll hit top 50 value in 8 cat leagues. And obviously in 9 cat leagues, he's going to have a little bit more trouble. Guys going around the horn. Crabb is going to continue to be inconsistent. I think that he hasn't had the switch flip on, and it's hard with the type of offense that they run. It's very up tempo. It's very share the ball. And so if he just doesn't happen to get the ball one game, it gets really bad really fast. So I don't see a lot of, I'm not riding that train. And then as far as like Rondé Hollis Jefferson, I think that the break is perfect. And it's also a great example of how you can't really put a guy that size at power forward that much and expect him to stay healthy. He takes so many drives to the rim. He just is in the mix everywhere. He's one of the weirdest players I've ever seen in the NBA. He reminds me of people I used to play on the blacktop with, where it's like, how'd you get that shot off? I have no idea. You're the weirdest basketball player I've ever seen. And it works for him. And he's really good. And I think that pretty much covers most of them. Am I missing anybody?
No, I think that was good. I mean, do the whole team if you want.
Nah.
I kid. You don't want to talk about Quincy Acey? Let's go.
One day he's going to have fantasy value. He shoots threes. He's in the mix with the steals and the blocks. So he's not the biggest leaper, but I think one day we're going to talk about Quincy Acey. How about that?
A clip there. The day that someone talks about Quincy Acey, you'd be like, look, February 16th, 2018, Bruce said that insane crap when Dan was mostly just joking. let's go to the Midwest, and then we're going west. We'll just slowly, we'll take the Chris Bosch route and ride a bus. The Cavaliers, what do we know about them after a week? It seems like what we know is that they've got a lot of combo guards, and they're all going to play. A lot of combo guards.
Isn't that crazy how many combo guards they have?
J.R. Smith, Jordan Clarkson, Rodney Hood, George Hill. That's the big ones, right?
Yeah. Well, first of all, it's not shocking that LeBron came out and started playing defense and really pushing hard. Like, there's a great article released by Joe Varden, I believe Cleveland.com. He's been one of the more outspoken Cavs writers over the years. Not afraid to.
I saw you tweeting about that one. I noticed. By the way, you can again follow Aaron at Aaron Bruski on Twitter. But yeah, I saw you mention that in a tweet.
Well, and I was just talking.
Well, we may have lost Aaron for a moment there. Hopefully everything reconnects. His face frozen on your YouTube screen. And yeah, that was that punted Brew out. I'll let you guys know right now while we have a moment, while Aaron's getting himself reconnected to the live program, that we're going to be heading west after our deal with Cleveland here. I want to talk about Phoenix. I want to talk about the Lakers. I want to talk about the Clippers. And then we're going to turn our attention to the YouTube chat room, which if you're watching right now and you're not involved in the chat room, come on over. You can do that. We've tweeted the links out a number of times. Please, if you have a moment, give us a thumbs up on the YouTube page. That's always helpful. And if you aren't already, but I'm betting most of you are, subscribe to our YouTube channel. You can do that by just clicking the subscribe button. It is Hoopball Media, I think is what it's called. That's the YouTube page name. It just says Hoopball there next to the logo. Also want to remind everybody that new website coming out for Hoopball very shortly. On top of that, we've got Fantasy NBA Today running every day. We've got the Lakers coverage. We've got Clippers. We don't have the Clippers coverage. That's something that may be in the works. We've got the Wolves covered. We got the Kings covered. We got the Blazers covered. If you want to be a part of the growth of Hoopball, feel free to let us know. You can chime in. You can let us know on Twitter. You can email Hoopball. There's a lot of ways that you guys can get involved. And I always forget to do this on Friday's show, so it's actually kind of, I believe the Yiddish word is kismet, that Bruski fell off the face of the earth in the middle of the program today, but we'll get him back in a second. Please do rate and review the podcast. If you like what you're listening to, we really appreciate that. As I've said a million times before, I will say it again. Ratings on iTunes are like our currency here. This show is free. It will always be free. And one of the ways that we can keep it as such is positive ratings, 5-star ratings on iTunes. You can do that if you're using iTunes on a computer or the podcast app on your mobile device. Search for Fantasy NBA Today in the podcast little search window. Click on the show title, not the name of an episode. Click on the show title, and then once you do that, it'll take you to the show page. There will be a rating or review button. You can click on that, and you can offer your thoughts on the show. But of course, we always appreciate the positive reviews. We're up to 146 now, which is kind of cool. Just checking the phone to make sure that number is accurate as of today. That is up something like 6-ish. I think we were at 140, whatever that was, week and a half ago. And I said, let's get 145. Well, now we can actually close in on 150, which is pretty sweet considering the show has only existed since November 2016. Most podcasts, I mean, look at some of your favorite shows out there that they have like 50, 60 reviews and they've been around for half a decade. So really awesome how many of you guys have taken the time to rate and review the pod or to get your buddies to do it. I mean, if you're sitting at lunch right now or you're about to be sitting at lunch, grab your friend's iPhone. Do it on that one. Search for Fantasy NBA Today. Throw in a review over there. We'll appreciate that forever. Still no sign of Bruski, so I'm wondering if his computer is completely fried. We'll just sort of dig into things as he gets himself resituated. Don't worry, folks. We'll make sure that everybody that's asking questions is getting their questions responded to. Oh, I know one other thing I wanted to make mention of here on the live program. Earlier this week, and I tweeted this out yesterday from the at Dan Besbris account. Earlier this week, I took some time to put together a full team game-by-game calendar in an Excel spreadsheet. It's basically just a list of all 30 teams coming down the left column and every date the rest of the season lined up across the top and who they're playing in columns from now until the last day of the regular season. I've found, and basically this is built on kind of the Yahoo template, right? Where if you go to the player page and you click on opponents under the various sorting tabs, it'll give you like the next 6 or 7 days that a team is playing and how many games they've got and who they're playing when. Also, most of you probably have a playoff calendar of some kind. We offer one, obviously, here at Hoopball for premium subscribers. It'll tell you how many games each team is playing during the playoff week. But one thing that goes, to me, this is why I wanted this Excel spreadsheet. It goes just one step further, and it'll tell you exactly which days your team is playing, and it'll sort it in an easy-to-view format that'll allow you to see visually. You can visualize when each team's game is. For a lot of us in head-to-head leagues, and I'm in mostly Roto, but I do have one head-to-head format league that it's with buddies, and we've had it for a decade or something like that, so it's not going anywhere. This is really helpful if you want to stream players and you have a weekly moves limit that you have to worry about, because now you can see weeks in advance. You can see what guys have. And it's not just like who's got a back-to-back over the next couple of days. It's, do they have 5 games in a 7-day span? Do they have, I think, with the rescheduling of New Orleans and Indiana, do they have 5 games basically in like 6 days because of a back-to-back-to-back? You can see where all of these things are lined up. You can see who plays on a Sunday and a Monday. You can see maybe who plays like Friday, Sunday, Monday, or maybe if there's a Friday or a Saturday, Monday, Tuesday, or something like that. So you can use your moves more effectively to make sure that you get the most out of your actual fantasy moves. That file that I just described in excruciating detail, while again, we wait on Brew to get himself relogged back into Google Hangouts, that file is on Hoopball now. It is free. I sent the link out last night. I think I sent it out at about 5 or 6 p.m., something like that. It's called the 2018 Playoff Streamer Schedule. So you can get that at Hoopball. Just go to some of my tweets. It's not from that far back. The response has been really positive so far, and hopefully you guys can enjoy that as well. And Brew lives! Brew lives! What did you do, man? Did you turn the power off?
Dude, I was just sitting here. First of all, I don't know how long I've been away. And I'm embarrassed to say how long I was just talking to myself for.
I don't even remember what we were talking about.
It was the Cavs. I hope that you broke the Cavs down for the listeners, because I do not
not one word on the Cavs. When you fell off, I just basically talked about what we got going on at Hoopball, and I described my tedious Excel spreadsheet project for like the better part.
You killed it on that, by the way.
That one took some time. That took some doing. It's a streamer, man. It's what you got to do if you want to stream some stuff. So I don't remember what you were saying about the Cavs. I think you were just getting started, and then the internet did one of them little things, and you were just gone.
Yeah, I like the screen was off, and then all of a sudden I got done, and I finished my sentence, and I'm like kind of like, hello, Dan, are you there? and then it's like, you have to relog into Google, and it wasn't even like that the thing glitched out. It was like you're just all the way kicked out, and
you're done.
I felt like I talked for 5 minutes on the Cavs right there. I have no idea.
I'm giving you 3 minutes on the Cavs.
I'm definitely not talking about everything I talked about before, but I'll go fantasy values. It's a fantasy show. I'll basically say that. The shooting guards, I'm not targeting really any of them, but I've got them ordered. Clarkson, and then Hood, and then Hill. And it's because Hood is obviously an injury risk, but as well, like his value comes from points, threes. And if he can get like 16 points and 2+ threes per game, I think he can have value. I question whether or not he can get the 16. And this is all on a pre-Kevin Love scenario, by the way. So, that's a question there. And then as far as Hill goes, he could I feel like he could lose it in any number of categories. I feel like the scoring could be down, the 3 points could be down because the scoring's down. I feel like the assist could be down. And then of course the all important steals and blocks, that's always dependent on, for in his position, kind of how they do scheme wise. They haven't been great defensively. So I'm just not high on any of those guys. And then Clarkson, his only purpose on the floor is really to put the ball in the hole, and then he gets you the kind of nominal rebounds and assists, and the percentages being what they are. He's constantly been a top 120 guy. He sort of slid in LA this last year, early on in the year, because he wasn't getting the big minutes. But he's the consistent one. And if I'm going to be going for anything, say in a 14-team league, I would be going Jordan Clarkson. And Nance, of course, is probably for the rest of his life, even after basketball, will be a top 100 guy. And that's that.
Well, where was J.R. Smith in that blend?
He was a part of the first segment of the Cavs story I told. He was part of Joe Varden's article that you got to go read because it explains everything.
Oh yeah, that is what we were talking about. I forgot that's where you glitched out. It was Joe Varden. Don't say it. Don't say it 3 times. You'll get kicked out of here again.
Go read it because it's going to basically reset everything you think that happened in Cleveland. So if you've been, practicing narrative based.
All right. Well, let's go west. Not all the way west. We're going to, I think they're on Mountain Time right now, at least until daylight saving moves them back to Pacific. Phoenix. The Phoenix front court now has taken on weird new shapes. You already mentioned Marquise Chris during our opening portion of this show. They've got Elfrid Payton. They've got Devin Booker. They've got TJ Warren. They've got Josh Jackson. Those 4 guys seem like they're free to just go out there and fire away. And then there's this whole Dragan Bender, Alex Len, Tyson Chandler, Marquise Chris thing. I know you like Marquise to sort of get a little bit of time going forward. Do any of those other guys pose a risk to him? Are they going to do anything? I'm sort of avoiding it like the plague right now because it looks messy.
I'm definitely bullish on Chris, so I'll own that if it flames out. I see a player that, like I said in the open, is so bad, but he gets fantasy stats, and that's the name of this game here. And so I won't go into Chris too much, but I do think he's going to be a consistent sort of force within that group of the front court players. Tyson Chandler is probably going to steal more minutes than he deserves. Alex Len had a good outing the other night. I think it was 3 steals, 4 blocks. I mean, it was massive. And that is it's an outlier. He hasn't been that good this year. He's basically, with these results, as we get closer to the All-Star break, you got to take them with a grain of salt a lot of times because there's so many variables that get out of whack. Half of teams, 6 out of 12 players, take the break early. And so it's just too much to evaluate these guys too heavily at this stage. So I don't want to overreact to that line. He's a guy, though, if you need a big man, I think he's worth taking a flyer on because you can, possibly strike gold with that if Chandler gets hurt or they just decide, let's play Alex Len. The problem is they don't have any incentive to play Alex Len. He's not a part of their future. He doesn't want to be there. So those 2 things make it they're not going out of their way to put him on the floor. Dragan Bender has all this upside. And I'll say this, I like them all a lot more with Elfrid Payton there. And we've already seen that pay off, for this team. Payton, I think, is a great fit for a young team that wants to run up and down the floor. He can he can attract the defense on these drives to the rim, and he's a willing passer, so it all works out for the guys around him. His defense sucks, but whatever. That is what it is. And then we saw Devin Booker have 36 minutes in that game. And so it kind of showed you that both Elfrid Payton can be what we think he's going to be, and some of these other guys can be what they're going to be with him getting big minutes. So I kind of just like the fit there for all involved. Bender is the big question mark to me because he could go big one night and he can disappear the next. The whole problem with him has been aggressiveness. So I think Bender is, a 14-team guy. I think Marquise Chris is a must-own guy. I think Peyton is going to have a really special second or last third of the season here. And I think, TJ Warren might slide back a tiny bit, but I think he's going to benefit from Peyton as well. It's weird to be pro Suns on a move that they made, but I'm pro Suns on this move.
We're going to finish up here with a sweep through Los Angeles. You already talked about IT, so we don't need to spend a ton of time there. Got a couple of questions on Ivica Zubac, some questions about Kyle Kuzma minutes being down Lonzo's return. Josh Hart seems like he's in a little bit of trouble on the minutes side of things. What about those guys? And I mean, I feel like Zubac's 19 minutes, tough to
Hey,
put
did
up a
you
double
have
double.
your special guest in on the Lakers podcast yet?
Not yet. We're recording on Sunday. That's going to be a
Okay.
fun one. Should we preview
I'm
that
going to be
now?
tuning into that one. And how's Eli doing? Is he containing himself?
He's pretty excited. Yeah, we're pretty excited. We got a good one. We got a good one coming up on the Lakers show.
I thought Eli would be pretty excited about that. I'm really looking forward to listening to that. But no, what I read the other day from Ramona Shelburne was really important. I mean, Lonzo Ball is the future of the franchise. They've invested a big pick in him. He's, on top of that, more trouble than he's worth at this point in time, with the whole LeVar Ball stuff. And the article basically says, hey, by the way, he got way less important over the last couple weeks. When you see the rest of the team stepping up and winning without him, when you see the kind of the stance that the organization has taken. And now they bring in Isaiah Thomas, which to me was a shot across the bow to the ball camp. Hey, look, not everything's free here. You don't just get handed the keys to the car and then, oh, by the way, while you're struggling in certain respects, your dad can just tee off on the coach and have all of this drama associated with. So we're going to see how this team shifts. Like if Lonzo comes in and he's not making all the right plays, you got a guy that was just a top 5 MVP candidate that can come in and make all the right plays. So it might be the case that you see Lonzo hover in like that 25 to 28 minute range and really defer to Thomas, and it will probably hit his stat set. That said, I do think you saw a lot of sets last night where Thomas played off the ball, and all this talk about him not being able to play off the ball, he looked just fine. And I think with Lonzo, that's actually going to be a really dynamic pairing. So I'm not thinking that Ball will struggle in the basketball sense, but if his shot selection suffers, if his dad starts chirping up, if Isaiah Thomas starts really, going for 25 every night, I think they might pull him back a little bit and make him less of an emphasis. But the other players, as far as like Julius Randle looks outstanding right now. I think that they're going to keep giving him minutes. I think that Brandon Ingram has looked really good. The efficiencies aren't there, but you got to look at your league and decide if that's hurting you or not. If it's not, he's going to be a great player down the stretch. I don't think you can count on Josh Hart. KCP, I think, will be a late round guy. Brook Lopez, I think he's got to be owned. I think he's possibly going to be able to go off at any point in time. And I think they're going to get Zubac in the rotation. And Zubac with a player like Thomas is so great because Zubac, all he thinks about is running to the rim. Isaiah is going to drive the ball to the rim, and it's going to take two guys, just as you saw last night. They might bother the shot. He's going to clean up on that glass pretty much nightly. So the only question is he going to get those nightly minutes? And I think you might have seen the set wave, to use a surfing term, for that. So if you hear that Zubac is going to be getting those 20 minutes per game, I think, there you go, hang loose, buddy. Mm-hmm. I think that 20 minutes per game puts Zubac in the conversation. 25 minutes per game puts him in top 100. And then there's a scenario where they shut Brook down. And then Zubac gets like 28 minutes per game, and that makes him a top 75 player. That's what owners need to be looking out for. Do you burn a pick on it right now? Probably not. But if you're feeling lucky, if you've got dead weight, it's something. I think he's going to have value at some point, and we just don't know when.
Freaking Dirty Harry over there. What about the Clippers backcourt? That's another hostage situation in Los Angeles. There's so many bodies. They got Austin Rivers back. They got Lou Williams. They got Avery Bradley. They got Milos Teodosic. They got...
Doc's going to give the FU to the world on this. He's going to play Austin whatever he wants. And Austin's
winning. They're winning right now.
And Austin, I think if he's healthy, will bring back late round value. Now, it's not the type of late round value that you care about in a 12-team league. You're not going to get, you got to have him, and he's an injury risk. And, there's questions, I guess, how can he keep up playing these minutes is the question that I would have. But, Lou is going to do his thing. He's going to be great. I think he's definitely going to take a hit now that they're healthy. Hopefully we're able to sell high. But This is a team that's in the playoff chase, and they got a lot to prove, and they've got good, pieces that fit. Avery Bradley's probably one that you want to fade. I don't think that his game translates to fantasy value right now. He needed to rebound in Boston to be the guy that had all the hype the year before. Not doing that with DeAndre Jordan. Tobias will be fine. I think that you saw Danilo Gallinari is going to be fine as long as he's upright. We'll have to see. The guy that everybody's looking at, I think, is Montrezl Harrell, and can he get cut loose? But that ain't going to happen while they're in the playoff chase.
Yeah.
He's a late round guy with injury upside.
Let's take some questions. We're going to take some questions. It's time to turn our attention to the chat room. You guys have waited very patiently. I appreciate that. We're going to dig into this thing. First question today actually came pretty shortly before the show started. Everybody's turning to the procrastination thing these days. I think that's All-Star break rearing its ugly head. We talked about Tyler Zeller. That question was actually on the list, and we knocked that thing out. We talked about Dwayne Wade and his impact on Miami. Josh Richardson got brought up in this particular question. I think he was one name that we didn't really mention. Does this hurt or help him in any way? It seems like he's sort of immune to it, but it also feels like he's slowed down a tiny bit after a hot stretch.
I think you should look to people like Ira Winderman who are plugged in, and he has concern. He has apprehension that Wade's going to come in, take too many shots, and impact this rotation in the wrong way. And he's asking those questions, and Eric Spoelstra is providing the answers that I think fantasy owners of Josh Richardson would hope to hear, saying, we're going to really take a hard look at this and, do what's best for the team. So the question then becomes, can Wade pull it back? And I think to a certain degree, Wade has been humbled a little tiny bit by it didn't work in Cleveland. He did take a lot of shots, especially early. He was effective, but as things moved on throughout the season, he lost a lot of that effectiveness. And he comes home where he owns the place. It's really in his court to decide, am I going to be a playmaking presence that turns and gives the ball to a guy like Josh Richardson, where you see the resiliency and you see him be bulletproof in this situation. But I'm afraid to report that I don't think that's going to be the case. I think he's going to take about a 1 to 2 round hit here.
Shoot, I had the next one queued up and then I forgot where I put it. There it is. Sacramento is the next direction the chat room takes us. Buddy Hield, Scal, Labissiere, what do we think with this team? They keep saying the young guys are going, and then we keep seeing Vince Carter playing 25 minutes.
Oh, sweet Sacramento.
Love
the it's okay. Here's the deal. Buddy Hield is a buy low, massive buy low. I should have remembered him at the top because this one just screams buy low. They had to play the veterans after declaring that they weren't going to play the veterans as much because Scal got hurt, because Frank Mason was hurt. Also, the All-Star break is such a natural divider to say to these old guys, hey, we're actually gonna move on. And so I think that this will actually happen. I think Scal's going to get consistent minutes, health notwithstanding, and I think that you're going to see all these young guys, especially Hield has been put on a leash and has been given 21 minutes per game. It's not good for a streak shooter to get low minutes, because any sort of dip in the streak gives the coach more ammo to not play the guy. Good stat set, and top 100, top 120 value in low minutes. You pump that up to 30 minutes a game, or even 27, 28 minutes per game. I think at a minimum you'll be a top 75 guy for the rest of the year. I think touching top 50 is absolutely a possibility if they just completely let him loose. So top 75 is where I'll have him. The other guys, Bogdan's locked into top 75. Willie Cauley-Stein's going to get a ton of minutes. Scal, I think, has probably, I would want to rate him around top 100, but he's got the ability to go higher. And that's, key, because he could get steals, blocks, and threes. The percentages are in a decent place, but points and rebounds can be there as well. So, I think a lot of optimism, in a situation where it's kind of like, yeah, come on, we've heard this a million times. That creates value for you as a fantasy owner.
Any idea when Kawhi Leonard might play?
Why you wanna ruin my weekend like that, Dan?
Oh, blame our buddy Bones McGones here.
Screw you, Bones. And the horse you rode in on. It's like there was a report that there's no timetable. I thought the minute that the thing happened this last time that it was an all-star break situation. I've heard Paul Garcia out of San Antonio reported that the writers, they have great insights, and he basically said if he doesn't come back by March 1st, it's asking a lot for him to get back into the swing of things in 20 games prior to the playoffs. I think that might be the unofficial timetable there, and it's brutal because like this has been a great year for my teams. It really has. But any team that drafted Kawhi Leonard is hurt in the tank. Like in talking second round, draft him in the second round type situation where the risk and the reward was in a decent place. All these things are hindsight. You take a stab, you got to beat 11 other good teams. You try to make it work, and then you get crapped on by the basketball gods. And I see you over there, Dan, just reading questions like you just didn't do anything. Mm-hmm. This is mean. This is mean, Dan Besbris. You're mean.
I don't have any Kawhi. I have no Kawhi. I have no dog.
If you had played 15 teams like I did, you'd have some Kawhi.
I would have. It's true. I would have had Kawhi. This is somebody else's fight right now. Would you even consider throwing out a buy low offer, or is it just like it's too?
Yeah. Oh, please, yes, by all means, do it. I mean, think about it. Like, is he really going to not play at all? And okay, let me just say he might not play this season. I don't actually. Nothing could surprise me here, but I mean, it's like beyond the pale if he's like sitting in a line. He's in a uniform right now. Sometimes, like for him to not play the rest of the season would be shocking. So that means for fantasy playoff owners, I mean, in roto leagues, it's just a question of value. Like there are about 25 games left for teams. And so if he misses 10, that's 60% of the remaining value that's left. So you have to take whatever you're doing and use that as math. And then if you're in the fantasy playoffs, you got to figure out what what is what. Is he taking game to game or probably back-to-backs off? It's tough, but I do think these are the situations. They're called distressed assets for a reason. You got to look at these situations and try to extract value.
Hassan Whiteside, Bam Adebayo, that thing. What do you make of the struggles in Miami? I mean, Whiteside, with Whiteside, at least, even in 23, 24 minutes, it does seem like you can do enough. With Adebayo, you get this like 15, 11, and 6 with 2 blocks, and then the next day it's 3 points and 4 boards. There's a lot of yanking around going on with these guys.
Yeah, I think it's the inconsistent minutes at the center position for Adebayo. Now he's had more consistent minutes lately with Olenek out. I just see a kid that can play basketball. That's, to me, with Adebayo, that is like the overriding thing. Olenek has a history of shoulder injuries. We don't know if he's coming back right after the break. It made sense, like many other players, that he would be held out through the break. They have a logjam of players, so one way to ease the logjam is to tell Olenek, take your time. They don't like to think that way, and the Heat aren't really locked into their slot, the way that they would like to be. So I think they'll be more aggressive rather than less aggressive in getting him back, but they're probably not going to risk further injury. That said, I think Adebayo is somebody that you can own. I think that the defensive stats will ultimately be there. I think the skills there. I think there's going to be improvement. A lot to like about that kid. And, with Whiteside, I think you're just hoping that he can make it to the end of the year with no problems. Everything else will be fine as far as the production. We've talked about this on the show. His having less minutes actually helped him out.
Quick little ranker for you here. 5 names. Where do you put them? Taurean Prince, Marquise Christo, the sandwich of Marquise Christo, Josh Hart, Scal, and Nerlens Noel. Did all of those come through okay?
Yeah, I'll go Noel over Hart, and then I'll put basically it was Prince and then Chris, and who was the 5th one?
Scal was the 5th one.
Scal, I'm gonna go with Scal in the 3rd slot. You got to go Prince. Anybody who's gonna get that many minutes, he's got to be at the top. You go Prince, then Chris, then Scal, then Noel, just because who the hell knows? And I mean, Hart, there's too many players in front of him.
Yeah. People do seem to like my my Marquise Christo sandwich reference. That one is sticking better than I thought it would.
What is that? What are you guys talking about?
So the Monte Cristo sandwich, where I think you and I talked about last.
Oh, it's the sandwich. What is the sandwich?
It's a fried ham and cheese that sometimes is French toast as the buns instead of regular bread. So it's very decadent. And I just thought it was a good fit because Ryan McDonough called him fat earlier this year. Phoenix.
That story, I mean, I would like to, if I could just get one piece of information on Marquise Chris, I just want to know is like, what is he doing during All-Star break? Is he like heading to Cabo like all the other NBA players, or is he like
straight to Mel's Diner?
Is he heading to Jenny Craig? Which one is it?
Straight to Mel's Diner for a Monte Cristo sandwich. That's my guess. Royce O'Neal, any stash value there?
Ooh, I'm really glad you brought him up. So, Mr. O'Neal, if you're reading the Roto World blurbs, or probably the Roto World, the Hoop Ball blurbs.
I'm not.
My God.
Yeah.
What just happened there? Well, you do something for 10 years and it becomes secondhand. No, if you're reading the blurbs, Royce O'Neal is hot. Like, he is a top 125 value over the last month in just 22 minutes per game, which you kind of got to look at this and think, okay, Ricky Rubio is going to come back, and probably O'Neal doesn't get 22 minutes per game, or he's not a great bet to get 25, where I think you would feel comfortable picking him up based on stat set. He's an athletic player. He's a defensive player. I think with that team, you get Donovan Mitchell handling the ball primarily and being this dynamic, can't be covered guy, which is its own story, which is amazing. His athleticism, he's baby James Harden. We've been calling him that since draft day last year. He is that guy. Then you surround him with players that benefit from a player that can get into the lane, penetration, kick it out. Your Joe Ingles, your Jay Crowders, Rudy Gobert setting screens has been a big deal for everybody involved in that offense. You've removed Rodney Hood. You've really balanced this team out. And I think O'Neal gives them this compelling aspect defensively where he plays the point guard position effectively, though Mitchell handles the ball. He comes in and they just get nasty, with Favors and Gobert splitting the big man minutes. You get Crowder doing the other 3 to 4 minutes. I think that Jazz team is going to be really good with O'Neal. So it'll be interesting to see what happens with Rubio. If he is hurt, do they say, hey, take your time, Ricky? And it comes off the heels of Rubio's push, back into productivity too, which I find interesting. But O'Neal is somebody for people to keep an eye on because the stat set, the steals, the blocks, the threes, they're there in a small amount of time.
To Orlando we go. Aaron Gordon, Nick Vucevic, both expected back after the All-Star break. Mario Hezonja has been playing his ass off with them out of the lineup. Any chance he can maintain value upon their return? And where do you see Vooch and Gordon finishing the rest of the way?
So the beginning of that question was who can maintain value?
Mr. Mario Hezonja.
Oh, yeah. If people remain hurt, it's possible he could sneak out of this with some late round value. He's still, he's doing the stuff that he did to get benched all that time. He rises up and takes some ridiculous shots, and not the smartest basketball player out there, but he can shoot. He's got good length, so he can get his shot off, and they need players like that. Especially with the point guard situation, you're not going to get a lot of shots generated out of those players that are based on one-on-one breakdowns and things like that. So it's possible. I just, with the guys returning, Gordon and Vooch, that's a lot of bandwidth right there, a lot of usage. I think that he's going to kind of come back down to the inconsistent range that you can't count on for late round value. But those guys coming back will be big for their owners. It's been a while, for Vooch, and Gordon's been frustrating.
The next question. Joel Embiid missed the last ball game for Philadelphia, and lo and behold,
The
yeah,
look on your face.
you know where this one's going. Rashawn Holmes had a big ball game, but nobody picked him up in a trade.
No blank Sherlock. Of course, he had a big game. First of
Yeah.
all, I dropped him everywhere that I was present enough to be a good fantasy owner. And I was hoping that my ineptitude would result in, Rashawn Holmes having some sort of opening to be productive here. But it's the Colangelos. They love themselves some Trevor Booker. And if they couldn't get Trevor Booker, they'd call up Carlos Boozer and see what he's doing, and bring him in. It is what it is. The Sixers have been winning and playing well. So there's really no like gravity to make them make a change. And it's just, what, next year he'll be a post hype guy. And it's definitely something where I will bet on that player having an impact versus not having an impact at the NBA level. So we'll have to see. But no, I mean, people are actually asking if Joel Embiid gets hurt, if he has value. And my answer to that is I don't know. I think that they would give the other two guys, Booker and Johnson, significant minutes, and that Holmes would play like 25 minutes, which would be enough for fantasy value. But is it enough to stash him and hold him? I don't know. Like, I think that he would be a top 80, top 90 guy, and that's not worth holding.
Jeremy Lamb comes up in the chat room here. He's coming off a decent ball game. Charlotte didn't actually move anybody at the trade deadline, which was a little bit of a downer. Is he a guy worth using the rest of the way? And I will add, other than over the next basically week of games, Charlotte plays, by the way, 5 times in the first 7 days out of the All-Star break. But other than that, is he doing enough to be deployed in a 12-team format?
I think the answers to that is yes. I mean, yeah, there's been some struggles. Yeah, you kind of look at that skeptically, but you can't chase the good numbers or the bad numbers. You got to look at baselines. Baseline for him has been top 150 value at the bottom of his production curve. The question is are things going to get better? I think they are going to get better. There's been articles to the effect that they want to go young. Ironically, in those articles, they don't consider him part of the young group. But I just think that there's too much potential for Batum to get hurt, for Kemba Walker to say, hey, you know what? I'm not going to grind through a knee issue in this season. It makes sense for me to not push it. There's too many ways that this could spin in Jeremy Lamb's favor. I mean, Batum's coming off an 0 for 10 and has a legit elbow injury that really they don't need to be pushing through. I don't see how Lamb doesn't get back up to the top 100 value that he was at in about 24, 25 minutes per game. And it's possible he goes to the early season version, which was rocking a nice top 75. And, he could even go higher than that theoretically. That team's got nothing to play for but ping pong balls. If he is the go-to scorer on that team and getting 30 plus minutes, I mean, he could go top 50. I'm not betting on that, but that team is built to tank right now.
Exo Red has a couple of questions here. We're not going to break down the 4 for 3 or 4 for 4 trade that's listed. Sorry, dude. That's we try to keep it a little more broad, but you did ask some other questions that are a bit more broad, so we're going to tackle those. Stash ranking. This is kind of fun. Scal, Kelly Olynyk, Nerlens Noel, Markelle Fultz, and Jordan Bell. What do you think of any of those guys? Anybody hitting your radar from that list?
Speed read those.
Sure. Scal, Olynyk, Noel, Fultz, and Jordan Bell.
Yeah, I'm going to go Scal then Jordan Bell. I mean, it's a stash list, so Olynyk is not really, Olynyk should be owned because he can get you late round value with mid round upside. But that's not what you're what you're looking for is like, can this player give me pop? And so I think Scal can do that. Bell can do that. And think of this as well. They got a lot of reason to rest those vets in Golden State. He was getting top 75 value in like 20 minutes per game when he was on his game. And so those two. And then I got no interest in Fultz. He's dead money this year. He probably doesn't play a lick.
Yeah,
And
I love that they're still trying to claim that it's a physical thing and not mental. Just come on, guys. Let's get over that hump. You all sound ridiculous at this point.
I think it
Uh,
would help him if they just let him say that it was that.
yeah, I don't understand. They're contributing to this needless stigma attached to mental stuff, and it's idiotic. We talked about Emmanuel Mudiay already. We got that knocked out at the beginning of the show. We talked about Bogdan. We talked about Len. We talked about Jared Allen. We talked about J.R. Smith. We talked about Larry Nance. Lots of this stuff we've actually covered already, which is pretty
We've
good
covered
for us.
half the damn league.
I know it. We talked about Mario Azonia. We talked about Royce O'Neal. What about Jay Crowder, actually, while we're kind of hovering in the Utah atmosphere? He does seem like
Yes.
he looks kind of happy there, huh?
Well, as long as you don't get your narratives from ESPN or bad basketball analysts, you would know that he was not thrilled with what was going down in Cleveland. And now that he's in a place that's not Cleveland, he's old Jay Crowder, and that's a great fit. I really think that he's a late round guy, probably not a mid rounder, but stranger things have happened. I mean, Derek Favors has been way too healthy this year. And so if something happens there and he's now playing 30 minutes per game, stranger things could happen, especially in a 9-cat league. He could creep up. He looks engaged. He's getting the ball in places that he likes. I think there's a lot to be said for Crowder. He's a late round guy.
Yeah, it seems like he's like a steal away from being really relevant. If one steal a game could be 1.5 even, that would change things pretty dramatically. Another Mario Hezonja post in there. That's good. We knocked that one out. A lot of Mario Hezonja fans. D'Angelo Russell versus Isaiah Thomas rest of the season. I think I can answer that one for you and just say IT. Jabari Parker, what's the timeline there? How long until he can be fantasy relevant?
The reason why I haven't been on that bandwagon is I just feel like there's so many usage guys around him that the consistency is going to be an issue. And so not only are you battling that, you're battling bringing him along slowly. The All-Star break will definitely help him out. And I think what teams do is they try to time it to a crescendo, so where maybe like 5 games before the playoffs, or probably the end of the season, you're getting that player into their playoff role, the 30 minutes per game. So until then, it's going to be 20, 22, 24, 26, 28, 30 minutes per game. And when he gets to 30 minutes per game, what can he be? Can he have the form that he had in the last run? And, if he's as good as he was before, I'm thinking that he can have something like top 80 value in that case. But on the way, it's going to be top 120. It's going to be top 140. It's tough. I mean, he's worth owning. I just don't know that you'll get the ROI that you thought you would get.
Joe Ingles versus Jay Crowder. I think we're pretty clearly on the Joe Ingles side of that thing. Marquise Chris versus Dragan Bender. I believe earlier
I'm not laughing at the question. I'm laughing at the takes of dropping Joe Ingles at some point in time this season.
Remember that? People got told to drop a lot of guys that they shouldn't have dropped. People react very abruptly to things. Chris versus Bender. It's Chris for you, right?
It's Chris, yeah. Bender's disappears more often, which is funny to say, given Chris's situation.
Let's see. Here's a bunch of names in a ranking list. Get yourself ready. Marquise Chris and Dragan Bender are both in there. We just talked about those two guys, so we already know at least the order of them. Marquise Chris, Dragan Bender, Montrezl Harrell sneaks his way into this one. I like that he's made an appearance. Scal, Zubats, and Deontay Davis.
Well, we already got the order on Chris and Bender. I think Scal slots in behind Chris. Then we had what's his name? Montrezl Harrell. I think Harrell probably is the safe play compared to Bender, but face it, we want the upside. So I would put Harrell behind Bender so we could at least get a crack at that upside in Phoenix. Deontay Davis, I think, has got to be at the bottom of that list. It's questionable what he's going to get and if he could even do anything if he got it. And there's one name that I can't recall that's in there.
Is it Zubats? Did you get that one? Or?
Zubats. I think Zubats could go ahead of. It's like the safe play is Montrezl Harrell, but Zubats has a path. So I think I would probably want to take a crack at Zubats over Harold. But if you need numbers now, you got to go Harold.
Stanley Johnson, Reggie Bullock, Anthony Tolliver. How do you like those three guys out of Detroit?
It's Johnson, Bullock, and Tolliver. In like Tolliver can be in like a 30-team league.
Rob Covington. Can he be a top 50 guy the rest of the way?
Sure. Why not?
Ed Davis versus Alex Len rest of season. Who do you like?
Give me the boss, Ed Davis. He had a bad game heading into the break, but as long as he's getting the minutes, he'll be fine.
Remember when we played Greg Monroe versus? That was fun. I want to do that again with somebody else. And it looks like it might end.
You brought up his name. I don't think he's going to survive there.
No, I agree. He's done. Marquise Chris versus Mario Hezonja rest of season.
No, Marquise Chris.
Team LeBron versus Team Steph. Who you got?
I don't know. I have no idea who's on what team. I thought it was great when Josh Lloyd's like, I'm not watching any basketball for a week. Leave me alone. Will I watch
3-point shootout?
Yeah, I'll probably watch it all. I mean, why not? But I don't even know who's on which team. But isn't like LeBron's team cursed with injuries, or did they get all the injury replacement players? Or
their guys did. So the injury replacements did go in place of whoever got hurt. So yeah, LeBron's team took it on the chin on that side. I think he had
theoretically Team Steph. I'll go Team Steph.
I was all over.
But you know what? LeBron. Actually, here I'm changing my vote. I'm going to go Team LeBron. He's got a lot to prove right now. He wants to take that energy through the All-Star break, and
Ooh, would you make a LeBron All-Star Game MVP prop bet?
Oh boy, no, actually, because now I'm going to go against my own logic. These guys, like he's been there, he's done that. He's not trying. All-Star Game MVP. Go James Harden.
Yeah, he does seem like he's got a little something this year, doesn't he? Kevin Love, is there a time you'd consider picking him up?
He was on my pickup lists this week in my 14-team leagues. In a weekly format, I think you can juggle it and get the value out of his return date. I think he gets at least 12 games. I think he could easily get 15 out of the 25 games, and he goes right back to producing top 50 value for you. And he has a lot to prove coming out of this situation as well. So yeah, I'm with it.
We just got an 8-name rank fest coming in. I'm going to save that for the last question because there's only like 2 others. Greg Monroe versus Ed Davis. That boss still for you?
Yeah, boss, easy.
Anthony Davis versus Steph Curry rest of season. Now we're going top 3 guys around here.
That's a great question. You got to go Steph. I mean, Davis is like, he's a walking heart attack if you're a fantasy owner. It's just take the money with Steph and run.
Charleston, sorry, I can't read your last question. We saved our political stuff for the pre-show antics if you guys want to go back and read that. All right, 8-player rank fest, and this will be the last one. That's where I'm cutting it off. Yeah, get your notepad document ready over there.
No, I'm not. I'm going without notes. Then.
Okay, Avery Bradley is in the list. I know you're mentally like slotting him in towards the bottom, so I'm going to keep the names coming. Marquise Chris is also on the list. Some of these are going to be repeats.
You got to go fast, dog.
All right. Avery Bradley, Marquise Chris, Skal Labissiere, Stanley Johnson, Royce O'Neal, Dragan Bender, Jay Crowder, and Andrew Harrison. 8 names. Rank me. Who's number 1?
I hate you. I've already forgotten all of them. No.
Whoa.
I think Chris has got to be at the top because he can hit top 75. Bender's going to slide in somewhere. You hit me with the names again. I'll write them down. I'm dumbass.
Yeah, you got to get to 8 is too many to do in your head. I wouldn't be able to remember half of these things. Okay, you had Chris, Avery Bradley, Skal, or the first 3, Stanley Johnson, Royce O'Neal, Dragan Bender were the next 3, and then the last 2, Jay Crowder and Andrew Harrison.
It's funny, I try to do that without writing them down. I can't even write them down fast enough. Skal, Stanley, O'Neal, and who was after O'Neal?
I lost track of all these things. Bender, Crowder, and Harrison.
Yeah, man.
Okay.
Back in the day, before college, maybe I could have done all that.
Remember it? Nah. I don't think even kids can remember 8 names.
I think I could pull that off, but that's not here nor there. Anyway, all right. So we'll go Chris. There's a lot of interesting names on this list. I would go Chris, and then that my own handwriting is classic. I'm gonna go Chris. Stanley is a safe play for top 125 value, so that I think that actually plays in a lot of 12-team leagues. So he's somebody that you could rank ahead of Scal, but Scal to me is more intriguing, more upside. So I'll go Scal. I'll go Chris, Scal, Stanley Johnson, followed by
Crowder.
Crowder and Harrison is right on his tail, because Harrison, showed us a lot. He got his numbers with Tyreek the other day. And then, Bender and O'Neal. I think O'Neal probably ends up. I think I got Bender on this list twice. Who is it? Oh, it was Bradley. Avery Bradley. Yeah, and Bradley's at the bottom of the list, as you said. So I'd rather take a chance on O'Neal, unless I'm absolutely desperate for production now. I'd just rather take a chance on O'Neal and see what I could get. But yeah, that goes Chris, Scal, Stanley Johnson, Crowder, Harrison. You could flip-flop those two if you want to go for Harrison's upside. Then Bender and O'Neal, and then Avery Bradley. Screw you, 8-person list.
It's a good one to go out on. Ben, yes, we will talk playoff strategy after the All-Star break. We'll get into that stuff on Fantasy NBA Today as a whole, actually, coming out of the All-Star break as well. Thanks for listening, everybody. Appreciate your help out of the chat room. He's Aaron Bruski. I'm Dan Besbris. Brew, are you around? Are you doing the premium show on Sunday, even with it being All-Star break?
Yeah, I believe I am.
All right, well, it's your call. You run this joint.
Yeah, I forgot to put in for time off.
Hey, you idiot. He's at Aaron Bruski on Twitter, at Dan Besbris, at Hoopball Fantasy. Give that bad boy a follow. You'll be happy you did. Have a wonderful weekend, everybody. Brew's back with you Sunday. We'll have reverse chronological lightning round here on Fantasy NBA Today on Monday morning. Auf Wiedersehen.